All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the architecture of continuous system trust. We're zeroing in on a concept from modern operating environments that's honestly pretty fascinating, the SYRAG Enterprise Baseline. Now, if you're not super familiar, SYRAG is basically this highly secure, specialized OS built for critical infrastructure. But the Enterprise Baseline? That's what we're really unpacking today. We're going to look at why those traditional, periodic security audits are, well, they're falling hopelessly behind. And we'll see how a deterministic compliance engine, one that actually uses real-world code instead of just static checklists, is completely flipping the script on how we view system integrity. So if you've ever found yourself wondering how to keep absolute ironclad confidence in a system way after it's been released into the wild, you are exactly in the right place. Let's get right to it. Let's kick things off with what I think is the most critical question about a system's health. Think about deployment day, right? Everything is perfectly configured, your security checks are all green, and the system is officially stamped as compliant. It's a great feeling. But what happens the very next moment? Actually, scratch that. What happens 5 seconds later? Because as soon as that system goes live, it hits the real, very messy world. Data is flowing, users are logging in, and the environment instantly starts to shift. We kind of lull ourselves into this comforting illusion that, hey, it was secure yesterday at launch, so it's fine today. But relying on that initial deployment baseline, that is an incredibly risky bet.
Maurizio Rizzari, the author from our source material, actually hit the nail on the head here. He says, compliance cannot be treated as a one-time exercise or a box to be checked at deployment. And he is absolutely right. Treating security as the static snapshot is a massive flaw in how we handle modern environments. When we treat compliance as just a checkbox, that chore we do once a quarter just to keep the auditors happy, we're basically closing our eyes to literally everything that happens after the system goes live. Compliance has to be a continuous breathing discipline, because the security posture of a living, breathing host, it is never static. No way.
I mean, think about the sheer inevitability of system drift. A host might look impeccably healthy when it spins up, but it drifts incredibly fast. Within just a few hours, things are shifting. Services change states. Software updates pile up, and we all know those occasionally bring in some fun, unintended side effects. Network exposure evolves unexpectedly, maybe because someone tweaked a firewall rule for a quick test and completely forgot to revert it. Sensitive files suddenly become way too accessible. Even deep down in the kernel, conditions drift and reveal hidden risks way before a human operator would ever spot them. Seriously, a perfectly compliant host can wander into a vulnerable state by lunchtime. Which is exactly why we've got to move fast to catch these unpredictable changes before they turn into a literal 5-alarm fire.
So the contrast between the old way of doing things and what we actually need today is pretty stark. Think of traditional static analysis like a cobwebs clipboard. It relies on one-time checks, periodic reviews, and honestly, what usually amounts to a totally superficial inspection. It's basically guessing that you're compliant based on outdated spot checks. But what modern environments actually need is a beating heart, a living process. We're talking continuous measurement, active observation, and relying purely on live operational evidence. Real-time verification isn't just some nice-to-have best practice anymore. It's the absolute bedrock requirement if you want a platform that stays secure and governable for the long haul.
And that brings us to the core solution we're analyzing today, the SYRAG Enterprise Baseline. At its core, this is a deterministic compliance engine built on real-world code that observes the system while it actually operates. Now, that word deterministic is super important here. It means we're dealing with absolute mathematical certainty based on executing code, rather than just crossing our fingers and relying on human guesswork. This module completely ditches the cobwebbed clipboard. Instead, it's designed to actively observe. It is built entirely around gathering evidence relentlessly, continuously. By doing this, it turns compliance into this dynamic, living process of awareness that's natively embedded right into the OS itself.
So how does this engine actually build that picture of health in real time? Let's break down the mechanics. First, it gathers live operational evidence straight from the operating system. It's not digging through stale logs from last Tuesday, it's looking at what's happening right this very second. Once it grabs that live data, it immediately evaluates the current state of key security indicators against a really strictly defined baseline. And then finally, it instantly translates all that raw, messy reality into structured reports. It calculates a definitive baseline score and flags concrete findings. It essentially distills the chaos of a live system into an exact, precise measurement of its health.
But here is the crucial point. This engine isn't just passively sitting there watching. It communicates. It actively exposes all its results through a highly structured interface. Just imagine never having to do that dreaded caffeine-fueled mad scramble right before an audit ever again. Seriously, because this data is structured and instantly accessible, it's perfectly usable for those audits, plus immediate remediation and everyday operational oversight. It completely transforms compliance from this headache-inducing periodic chore into a seamless, automated flow of continuous governance. Accountability just becomes a permanent, built-in feature of your whole system.
You know, by shifting to this real-time verification model, organizations unlock a massive amount of operational value. Think about what detecting drift early actually means. When you can catch a newly open listening port or a sketchy pending package state the second it happens, instead of, finding out months later in some disastrous postmortem, your entire security posture changes. It empowers your teams to respond rapidly and nip issues right in the bud. And because of that, you maintain a significantly stronger degree of trust in your systems. Your compliance isn't a hopeful guess anymore. It is backed by continuous, undeniable evidence. And that, right there, is the reliable foundation you need for real organizational accountability.
Ultimately, we're witnessing a real paradigm shift here. Compliance is evolving from being just a frustrating administrative burden into a foundational pillar of organizational resilience and trust. When you build it deterministically right into the fabric of the operating system, compliance becomes this infinite, continuous loop of protection and validation. It's an ongoing cycle that guarantees true transparency and long-term confidence. It ensures that the highly secure system you deployed on day one is, for sure, the exact same secure system you're running today, tomorrow, and well into next year.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought, something to really consider about your own operating environments. How do you currently measure your system's trust in real time? Are you still relying on those static snapshots from deployment day, just hoping nothing has drifted? Or do you have a living process of continuous measurement firmly in place? Honestly, the difference between those two approaches might just be the single most critical security factor in your entire organization. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack these insights today. Stay curious and keep asking the right questions about the systems you rely on every single day.